The problem we're having today is every time I sit down to try to record this, I say something stupid. And I'm also uncharacteristically angry because I went to go render out the speed paint that I was going to use for this video, only to realize that I forgot to record half of the entire process of that commission, so you will not get that today. Instead, you're going to get this beautiful bust that I did for a patron, their character. This is what I do for my patrons, so check it out. Hey guys, it's Caez, non-binary artist from hell, here to ruin your day with my unforgivably disorganized rambles over the world's hottest speed paints, and to ruin my intro, to share my experiences of trying to make a living as an artist / parent, so hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes I do. Before I get into the actual content of the video, I don't know if I mentioned this because it's my 5th time re-recording this. It's going to be a ramble video, but let's do some promo. I have an adoptable design that I still haven't been able to sell. She is a Pegasus, unicorn, centaur, whatever. She's purple, she's pretty, she's sparkly. She's on my Twitter. I'll link her down below. Her name's Celeste, so if you're interested, go check that out because I do need to sell her. Please and thank you. And of course, my Patreon. If you like what you see in this video today and you want to get access to my art before I remember eventually to post it to social media, go check out my Patreon because there's lots of cool stuff there. And depending on, you know, what happens in the next coming months, people cycle out, people stick around or drop their pledges, you might be able to bump up your pledge and get one of these commission tiers so you can get beautiful art like this of your own OC. Currently, I do not have any commission tiers open. I do have my shifter tier open, which is you can get a custom badge of yourself or your Sona. Those were in the last video that I did, the little icons. So it's kind of like a commission, but it's not as intricate as the one that you see today. So check it out. Patreon is the best way that you can support me. Also, I have a store. Go check it out. Please and thank you. So if I sound like I'm out of breath, I was running up and down the stairs for no other reason than to chase my dog around. Today's video is actually inspired by a conversation that I was having last minute. So I'm going to tell on myself. I'm working on my thumbnails, and mind you, they're going well today. I'm very excited because I'm working on the thumbnails for the penultimate episode of Lucky Season 1. Granted, I don't know if we're going to get to the cleaning up rough process, so I might not have those pages posted to my Patreon today. But if I can get all the very scribbly thumbnails done today, I can start posting those roughed out sketches, the more cleaned up version of the thumbnails, to my Patreon on Thursday, and I'm very excited about that. But I'm not procrastinating, that's what I'm trying to say. This was just a video topic that I was inspired, and I thought I have to do this right now or I'm not going to get the chance to. So I was having a conversation with a friend who is also making a webtoon, and I'm not going to go into the ins and the outs of the conversation, but I will tell you their name is Crow, and they make the webtoon Cheating Death, which is really cool. It's about the main character. It's all magical and fantastical and stuff, but the main character can see basically when somebody dies, like a timestamp over their head. I'm not going to give too much away. You should just go read it. If I remember, I will link it below. I've linked it in a previous video before, but Crow is pretty cool. They've been around for a while. They have followed me since my Star Wars self-insert shame days, the very beginning, 2016. But we were on the topic of kind of unconventional ways of getting yourself to get the work done for your comic. And I don't know if I've made a video about this before. It's hard to find ways to motivate yourself, but I'm talking like, I'm not talking, you know, you're too busy to get something done, or you're too exhausted, like you are tired because you have so many other things that you had to do and you need to rest, or you have to work, or you have other responsibilities, or you have a chronic illness, or any other factors that physically could keep you from doing the work that you need to do. I'm not talking any of that. I'm talking very specifically more along the lines of executive dysfunction, where you have the time, You have the motivation, the inspiration, you have all the right environment, you have everything that you need to sit down and do the work, but you can't get yourself to do it. I struggle with this often, and the biggest parts, like the biggest challenges when it comes to me sitting down to force myself to do the work, is trying to do my thumbnails and inking my panels. I hate inking so much. I really hate it. Also, sorry for the unintentional ASMR. I have a bad habit of picking at the threads on my clothes, so I will try not to do that in this video, but if you hear it, that's what it is, and I'm sorry. But, so, let's talk about unconventional ways to help you get around that. Disclaimer, this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. I am just going to tell you the weird things that I have done or started to do recently to get myself to push past that executive dysfunction stage and get the work done. They're gonna sound weird, probably. I don't actually care. And my request is that if you struggle with this too, if this is something that you sit down to do the work, but you have trouble getting yourself to actually put the work in, what is something that you have done to trick yourself into being productive during those times? So this video probably seems very jarring. It's just that I am getting distracted as I try to process my thoughts of what I'm trying to say in this video. None of this is scripted today, as you can probably tell. I apologize, but also this is just kind of what it's been. So the things that I have done to help me kind of trick myself into wanting to get the work done, or at the very least turn my autopilot on so that I can just do it without having to think about it. The ways that I have mentioned before, things that I'll do to kind of get myself to do the work without really having to think about it, is I'll put on like an OC playlist or like a really cinematic music playlist to kind of daydream about future character interactions or other things I want to write into my story. Or sometimes I won't even think about my comic at all. I'll be thinking about stuff with my Star Wars characters or my D&D characters or things unrelated to Lucky, but I'm just doing kind of like the mindless work of Lucky, which is the inking or the coloring, thumbnailing, paneling, scripting, getting the dialogue in. I have to actually be focused on what I'm doing so that I don't accidentally put a different panel to a different speech bubble. But inking and coloring in backgrounds, that's usually pretty, like autopilot steps of the process. So I don't actually have to be present. I can kind of daydream through that. This does not sound healthy at all, but it's what I do. So just, the basic ways that I would typically do that. I used to, like back in like 2017, 2018, I used to get on before I had a child, I would get on like a Skype call with one of my friends or something. Skype. Woof. Yeah. Still have Skype, by the way. I only use it for mags. Which is silly because we both have Discord. But it's the sentiment of it, guys. But I would get on a call with somebody and try to do my work. I can't do that now because I can't focus. I will stop what I'm doing to talk because I have to be engaging with my hands or looking somewhere else to say what I'm trying to say, as I'm doing right now with my video. I can't look at my notes, I can't look at my phone, or I get distracted. So I can't do that anymore. I can't talk to people while I'm working on my comic. I can't be in a call with somebody. Sometimes I'll put on a live stream if I don't have to engage with that person, if they're not asking for conversation or any sort of interaction in the chat, or I have to have my mic on. If it's something where I can just listen to them without having to engage with them, I can do that. But that's just like general basic stuff like podcasts, like listening to stuff, filling up the air, watching The Mandalorian for the 18th time, because I guess that's my current obsession. Over and over and over again. But the unconventional things that I do, let's get into it. So I started doing this recently. I did it with the last update and I didn't realize that it was a thing that would work so well. And I don't know what got me to start doing it, other than I think that I saw a video on TikTok and it was playing what was it, Fallen Down from the Undertale soundtrack. And I've played Undertale exactly once, never touched it again. I wasn't very active in the fandom. Immediately after I played Undertale, I started conceptualizing Lucky. Did it have any inspiration on the story? No. I just associate it with that being the time that I first started working on Lucky, because it was the same time period. It was fall of 2015. I had all these different things going on. That was right before I'm not going to go into it. 2015 was like a roller coaster of a year. It was good and it was bad. But I have fond memories of that. So I heard this song on TikTok and I was like, you know what? I like this song. What if I go back and I listen to it? And it just so happened that one day I was working on one of my Lucky episodes and I was like, yeah, I'll just listen to the Undertale soundtrack because I don't really want to listen to any podcasts right now. I was really bored with everything that I had been listening to recently. And I put that on, and it was also one of the first like colder days of the season. Like, it was the first time of the year so far that it had been under 75 degrees. And my friend had just sent me this care package with a lot of books for my son, and she had included some candles, and one of the candles in there was like pumpkin scented. So I was like, oh man, yes, it feels like a fall day. I'm listening to like the Undertale soundtrack and I'm really just churning out these panels. I'm really, really focused on getting the work done. And then when I reflected on that, I realized the reason that I was more motivated to do the work when I was in that very controlled environment, that setting, all those different factors, is because it reminded me of the time that I had first started even thinking about making Lucky. And I remember at the time, I didn't know who these characters were. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I remember I was working at the call center and I wanted so desperately to be able to one day just make a story that I loved so much and that people fully supported on Patreon, so I wouldn't have to work tech support. And so that I could just make this story and have fun doing that and make something that people would really enjoy. And I would just, my job would be to make my art. Granted, it has been that for a few years now. I'm not financially independent, but I'm basically living the dream that I had back in 2015. So I got scared there because I thought it stopped recording. I'm sorry. So I had those different things. I had the soundtrack, I had the candle, it was cold outside, it felt like a fall day. I was in a completely different environment. It's 6 years later. I'm a totally different person than I was then. But as I was working on the comic, I felt like who I was when I first started exploring this concept, and it really motivated me. And I know that might sound silly, but it really got me out of that. It's not that I'm bored to work on Lucky, because I love this story. I get bored of the technical part of it because I've done this hundreds of times before. And it does feel redundant. It's not necessarily, it's not grueling work. It's not work that I don't enjoy. It's just sometimes it feels repetitive and it's hard to get past that. So getting back into that headspace of, remember when you first started doing this and you didn't know where it would go, you didn't know what it was going to be, but you knew that you liked it and you associate it with, these songs from this video game and this time of year and all these different feelings that you were having, and it helped me to be excited to work on it again. So that's one of the unconventional ways that I have recently started to trick myself into thinking like, yeah, we're going to have fun doing this, It's worked relatively good so far. I have to be sure to make sure that I'm not blending that in with my commissions and Patreon thing, because if I start listening to that soundtrack while I'm working on my commissions and other stuff, then it's going to become redundant. It's not going to have the magic anymore. So I keep that specific to working on Lucky, so that I can get that little feeling of magic again, and it'll motivate me. I know it's weird. I know it's weird, but just bear with me. The other thing is, the other unconventional thing that I do, and this might be depressing depending on how you look at it, but I try not to look at it too hard. The other thing that I do is, and I'm just going to read it straight off the notes here. This is a message that I sent, by the way. Pretend you're making this new episode for an imaginary publisher, or pretend it's your first update right after you got a brand new, like, huge wave of new readers, and you're excited to give them the next installment that they've been demanding. And I put a little note here that says, I know this one can feel stale when your reader engagement stagnates and it doesn't really feel like you're growing. So it depending on how you look at it, like trying to trick yourself into doing that. If you look at it too hard, you know, you might start to focus on the negative. Don't do that. We're just role playing here. But pretending that there is a huge demand for it, or a professional expectation for it, makes me want to roll up my sleeves and really, really focus on doubling down on the work that needs to be done, even if it's totally pretend. There is no official professional expectation for Lucky to update, and yet I still try to make sure that I have put my best foot forward for these updates to come out on the Celebrate Canvas Day at the beginning of every month. It's the pace that I'm comfortable with, and there's no, like I said, there's no professional expectation. There's a bit of a demand because Lucky does have a bigger readership, and for that I am extremely grateful. But my readers would not come after me with, torches and pitchforks if I said, hey, I'm going to be a week or two late on this one. They'd be like, oh, that's cool. We get it. Life happens. There is no actual official deadline that I have to meet, or I'm not going to get paid. It's not one of those situations. So I do, and a lot of people making webcomics might be in the same situation where, well, I don't have a paid deadline. I don't have any sort of professional expectation to get this done by a certain time. I don't have, there's not that much of a demand, so I don't really feel like doing it whenever it needs to be done. I don't feel like I need to make it as best as it could be. And again, it's a webcomic. You don't have to make it 300%. Like, you do not have to make it extremely high quality for every single panel. You can cut corners. I cut corners all the time. But the desire to make it at least by my own set deadline and my own level of quality for the work, so that I can look back at it and be like, yeah, I feel good about that. A lot of that is because I will genuinely pretend that there is that kind of expectation. We're role playing, and it works because you're tricking your brain into thinking, oh man, I need to have this done because my fake editor is expecting me to finish it so that they can publish it for me, and it's totally fake and it'll never happen. It's super depressing. But we don't look too hard at it. We just use it for what it is. And what it is for us right now is motivation to move past that executive dysfunction phase of trying to get your work done. And it works wonders. It is miraculous for me. If that doesn't really suit you, if you don't even like to think about that, because like I said, sometimes when your story isn't getting a lot of reader engagement, we can have negative feelings towards even thinking about that. So a practice like this could kind of be a little bit of a downer if you look at it too hard. But if that's not your thing, then you don't have to do that at all. The other thing that I do, and this is the last thing, the other sort of weirdish thing that I do, is I do it for future me. And I think about looking back at the episode that I'm working on now and just being extremely proud of it. Because when I work on an episode, the technical parts of it are so boring, and I get so bored doing it. But then I'll look back at a panel and it's like, yes, I'm so excited. Or I'll finish a panel and I'll send it to a friend or something, be like, look at this, I'm so proud. And they're like, yeah, it's great, I love it. And it's validate me, I feel so good. But it's more for the sense of, I want to make sure that I am doing the work so that I'm not stressing out about this later because of self-imposed expectations. like I said, I don't have a professional expectation to get this done at a certain time. I'm not signed to anybody. Even on Patreon, where I am primarily supported through people who are paying me, like if I was late on Lucky, I wouldn't just suddenly have everybody jumping off of my Patreon, because a lot of them are there just to support me. Like there's no set expectation right now that I have to get it done on the first month or the first Monday of every month, but that's my preference and that's what I'm aiming for. So when I sit down to do the work and I start to feel like, oh, I don't want to do it, I don't, nothing else is really motivating me, I think, okay, well, how will I feel about it when I go to bed this evening if I haven't inked any of these panels, or if I haven't worked on the thumbnails for this episode? Like, how will I feel about it then? I know that I won't feel good. I know that I will feel like I wasted the day. And I try to think about that, and most of the time that motivates me to focus on the work while I'm working on it. It doesn't always work, because that's kind of the problem with this executive dysfunction, is that there's not always going to be a workaround. Sometimes you're going to try all your tricks and you're still going to be hitting a wall. And to that I say, if you have to, take some time away from it. And I know that that's not always the option, because sometimes we do have to get the work done, especially if it's commissioned work or something else that you need to do to pay the bills or whatever. You have deadlines, you have something else that you have to do. This is not specific to those scenarios. If you want advice specific to those scenarios, I would say sometimes stepping away for a few minutes and then coming back and setting a timer so that you can work just for 2 minutes and see if that gets you into the zone. That's a good practice. But this is specifically for working on a webcomic when you're not contracted to anybody, but you do have your own personal deadlines that you want to stick to, and you do want to put sort of your best foot forward and also make something that you're proud of. I like to consider how proud I will feel when I finish these. I am so nervous about the season finale because there's a voice in my head that's like, yeah, you're not going to make it. Thanksgiving. November, December are the busiest times of the year for you. What makes you think you're fixing to churn out 2 of your most story intense episodes? Like, it's not going to happen. But at the same time, if I think about it, if I take care of the work that needs to be done today instead of putting it off until the last minute or worrying about it in the future, then I'll be paving a way for a more successful turnaround time for these episodes. See, if I wait to do these thumbnails for this episode next week or the week before it should be done, which I've done that before, it's never fun, then I'm going to have a hard time and it's going to be way more difficult for me to finish the episode. These last 2 episodes are going to be way more intensive, way more demanding of me. So it's important for me to think of that work that I know I'm going to need to tackle in the future and try to get what I can get done now and lay out the groundwork for that so that it's easier for future me to take care of. Those are very, very important things to consider when you're working on your episode. And I know that this is probably bare minimum, very basic for a lot of people who've been working on webcomics for a long time. But these are things that weren't told to me when I first started, and then I heard them somewhere along the way and I thought, I'm not really gonna worry about it because I have ADHD, so I am so used to turning things in last minute, doing the entire assignment the week before. It happens. I've done it a million times, but I don't want to have to do that with these last 2 episodes. These last few episodes, I've been a lot better about laying out the groundwork instead of finishing the entire assignment the night before it's due. But it is still something that I struggle with. So I'm rambling at this point, but those are just a couple of things that I do, a couple of weird, unconventional things that I do to motivate myself to get past that brain fog of not wanting to do the work or wanting to do the work and not being able to push myself to do it. And one is getting into the mindset of who I was and where I was at when I first originally started this project. And the way that I do that as of right now is listening to the freaking Undertale original soundtrack, lighting a pumpkin candle, and just pretending like it's fall of 2015. Like, it works. It really, really works. And I don't know, I guess it's just because I have that association. Like, that was the year and the time of year that I first started working on this project. And yeah, I mean, it really motivates me. The other thing is pretending that there is a professional expectation, pretending that you have an editor that's waiting on you, a fake editor. This is so sad. Pretending that you are about to launch as a Webtoon original and you have to get this next episode ready for your readers and you're so excited for them to see it for the first time, and it's so bleak. Just forget I said that. But pretending, you know, that there is a higher demand for the story than what you are currently used to, or that there is, you know, somebody, a publisher or somebody who is waiting on you to turn in this episode. It is surprisingly motivating, you know, like if you don't have those kind of expectations or obligations with your story right now, sometimes just pretending that there are can motivate you to get more of your work done. I know it's weird. I know it's depressing. Don't look at it too hard. Don't look at it too hard. Just sit down, role play for a little bit, get the work done. It's supposed to serve a purpose, like I said. And if the purpose is to motivate you, then that's all you need it for. And then you can tuck it away back in your drawer and never look at it again. And then also just putting the work in for future me so that I don't have to worry about it later. And that, again, it's not easy, and it's not something that you can commit to all the time, and it's not always going to help you. These things, you know, pretending that you're a different person or that you're doing work for somebody or you're doing the work for future you is not guaranteed to help you get past the executive dysfunction. These are just weird things that I do currently, and I have been doing over the past year or so to help me. The Undertale thing is new, but it's top of the list right now, so it was the first recommendation. But yeah, just try different things. And if there's like a weird unconventional thing that you do to help motivate you to get the boring work of your webcomic done, I would like to know. Again, I invite anybody who listens to this video to make a video of your own, and you can tag me, I'll watch it. Or if you just want to leave it in the comments, then I would be super excited to hear what you guys do. So yeah, and also I want to say, I don't know where I read this or heard this or whatever, but another thing that I know is sometimes having a community is super, super important to helping you focus on the work and getting the work done. I am a very isolated person. It's a bad habit. I probably talk to 2 people a day tops outside of social media, but I know that some of the most motivation I've ever gotten for getting my webcomic done has been from engaging with other webcomic creators, whether that be in the Webtoon Canvas Discord or just talking to other Webtoon creators, you know, like in DMs and whatnot, engaging with them. That is super motivating. So if you can, if you're able to, just really utilize your community and find other people that can help motivate you to focus on your work and get it done as fast as you need it to be done. And don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself, and don't put too much demand on yourself for a story that you're doing mostly for free. Have fun with it. Webcomics is one of those things where it is work and it is demanding, but first and foremost, we do it because these are stories and characters that we should love. You shouldn't be making a webcomic of something that you don't enjoy unless you're getting paid for it. Let me just, bare minimum, make sure it's a story that you really, really love. But yeah, if you can't tell, I'm trying to get out of here fast. So I'm out of breath. If you like what I do and you want to help support my dream of making my webcomic/IP full-time, please check out my Patreon. It's linked below. Yeah, lots of fun stuff there. If you want to follow my day-to-day, you can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, all under CaezHel. And if you haven't yet, go check out my webcomic. It is a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.